So we'll just I don't normally do any introductions or anything like that because we do all that kind of stuff after. And also I think that makes it really awkward being I'm sat here with Sophie Miller and she's the pretty little thing, whatever. But what I do love to do is kind of dig into what made you who you are today. So going back to say the second year of uni when you just started Pretty Little Marketer, what's been the journey for you from then to now?
Yes. The craziest journey. So rewind to June 2020, not that any of us want to go back there because it was our first UK lockdown. I was in my second year of university and I absolutely hated university. I went on a whim. I wanted to get into marketing and had no idea how to do that. University felt like my only option, so I got to second year, absolutely hating life, working in an influencer marketing agency alongside my studies, and I just knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. Didn't enjoy the influencer side of my role, but I loved the social media side. Whenever they asked me to pop up a post, I'd whip open Canva, and I'd be super duper excited to just experiment and try new things and connect with communities. And so it was a Sunday the 22nd, if I remember correctly. And I was feeling completely overwhelmed. I'd spent a year and a half in a degree I wasn't enjoying. I wasn't loving my job like I thought I was going to be. And I was stressed about what the next year would hold. I graduate in a year. I have all of these big dreams and I don't know how I'm going to achieve them. I head to Google. I was Googling questions not to use on my CV. I was Googling questions to use on my CV, cover letter tips, everything you can think of when you're having a bit of a quarter-life crisis as a second-year student. And nothing answered my questions the same way that university felt overwhelming and like a huge task. Now graduating felt like the exact same thing. And in the moment, I hoped and I wish I could find a place that answered all of these concerns for me. I wish there was someone on this journey with me who could hold my hand and walk with me, and I couldn't find that place. And so I made an Instagram page, and it's been a year and a half, and now it's my job, and we're a community of 100,000. And it all started because I needed something. It wasn't there, so why not sort of create that yourself? So yeah, it's been a crazy journey from then to here, but I think the best things happen by accident, right? It was just on a whim, and now here I am, so it's been a good ride.
I do think the best things happen by accident. I also think the best businesses happen organically.
Absolutely.
So with Klowt, you started Pretty Little Marketer and I started Klowt almost at the same time, so it was August 2020, middle of the pandemic one. And it was super organic. It'd come out of solving a problem that people were DMing me about all the time, and you were solving your own problem. And obviously, I don't think it's any surprise you've gone on to do amazing things. And you said you've got a community of 100,000. I think when you include your personal brand, it's 140. So to do that in a year and a half, 18 months, is crazy. So that's amazing. I want to pick a hole in why you didn't enjoy university because I hated university. I'm sorry, I sound terrible. I haven't got COVID. Just got a really sore throat. I want to dig into why you didn't enjoy university because I didn't enjoy university either. I hated it. And I don't use that word lightly. I really disliked it. I worked full time while I was at university. I did as many internships as I possibly can just to get out of the classroom because I felt like it was a complete waste of time. And the only reason I went was to keep my parents happy. So why did you go if you didn't think you wanted to go? And why didn't you enjoy it?
No, great question. So when I was 18 years old, I was completing my A-levels. And I had that moment where you sit down and you begin applying to UCAS. I was with my school tutor, personal tutor, whatever he was called. And the time came, Sophie, do you want to go to university? Okay, well, everyone else is. So yeah, I will, cool. Well, what do you want to study? So I want to study photography. And his face absolutely dropped, like I said something illegal. I'd said something wrong. I wasn't going to do science or biology or engineering. So where's that going to get you? That's not going to get you anywhere. Have you thought this through?
And, what year was this?
I was 18. How old was I when I was no idea.
Not that long ago though, because you're how old are you
I'm 25
now?
now.
You're 25, so it wasn't that long ago.
No, not at all.
Social media was a thing. Marketing was a thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Digital was a thing. Photography a thing.
And that kind of carried that really hit me. So age 18, I didn't go to university because I thought I want to do all these things, but clearly that's the wrong thing to do. If you want to go to university, you have to do the clever things and not the creative things. And so I ended up for 2.5 to 3 years in a events coordination job, and I hated it. I hated that too, and it was life sucking. It sucked the soul out of me, and I got to a point where I felt like I was too young to be waking up every day either crying or going to a job that made me feel like I wasn't good enough or I wasn't achieving enough. And so I had to Google, again, always my go-to, and I started searching for jobs and industries that married business, creative, and people, because those are my 3 things. My events job kind of ticked that business, kind of corporate side, but I wanted more. And Google presented me with marketing. So I was 21 at this point, so 4 years ago. I spent 6 months applying for jobs, and I got none because I had no experience. I didn't know how to sell myself, and I didn't know what marketing was. And so, university at that point, age 21, felt like my only option. The normal thing to do if you wanted a professional career, I suppose. And so, I attended the University of Gloucestershire in my hometown because I felt too old to move away and do all the crazy things that a stereotypical student might do. But it's led me where I am today, and I don't think PLM would exist if university hadn't spurred me on to do that. But in terms of my experience at university, awful, horrendous. I felt everything was so disconnected to what real life and what life is as a marketer. I was working in an agency for the majority part of my degree, so alongside learning, I was in the real world environment. I knew what an agency looked like, I knew what a pitch was. And then when I compared that to what I was learning at university, that I was paying and getting into debt to learn, it felt about 50 to 100 years behind what was actually happening in industry. And I just found that disconnect so frustrating. I studied through COVID as well, so as a student just felt really mistreated and undervalued by my institution. So lots of different things, but everything happens for a reason, right? Got me to where I am today, so it has been a good part of my journey, but not enjoyable. Would I recommend university? Probably not.
It's interesting that you said that you think it's about 50 to 100 years behind, because I had exactly the same experience. Like I did PR and applied communications at university, so not exactly the same as marketing, but similar. And during that period of time, I was also in industry. So I was doing internships. I worked at agencies. I worked at Marks and Spencer's. I worked at Myla Lingerie. I worked at Hillgate PR, like decent sized businesses. And there was such a disconnection between what I was doing in a day-to-day role as a junior account exec or as a intern at Marks and Spencer's versus what my tutor was teaching me. I was like, why am I here?
Yes.
And the thing is, when I went to university, it was nowhere near as expensive as when you went to university. So my debt was like 35,000 as opposed to 50, 60, 70,000 pounds that people are getting to debt now. And it's really sad to hear that it's not changed. Like Dee, who's in the room now, she just completed her degree last year, and she worked for me throughout her degree period. But she came out of that degree saying, I learned way more from working with you part-time for 6 months as I did for the whole 3 years or 4 years of my degree, because it was so disconnected. Like there was no freedom, there was no creativity. It was all like, this is what's on the board, copy it down, that's how things are done. And I think that's one of the most dangerous things to creativity, is being like, this is how it's always been done. So you didn't like university. You have no regrets, which is all. I'm the same. I hated it, but I have no regrets because we are where we are, and if you change your path, often you wouldn't get to the place that you're at to now. But you hated university. You're year 2. You can't find any support to help you get that job that you want to get in marketing. You set up an Instagram account. What happens next?
Within 4 weeks, Pretty Little Marketer on Instagram hit 1,000 followers. Within 6, we got to 2,000. Following that, I set up a Facebook group because I noticed everyone chatting in the comments, and I thought, why not bunch these people together? They can chat alone. That began growing, set up PLM on LinkedIn because I felt like the natural place to be. Where are marketers? They're on LinkedIn, so I kind of set up an account over there. 20,000 within 2 to 3 months, and it just kept growing and growing. So for at least 6 to 8 months, PLM wasn't a side hustle, so to say. It didn't bring in income. It was literally just something I loved doing. I used to batch create my content on a Saturday morning when my boyfriend was at hockey, and it would be my favourite part of the week. I'd be so excited to sit there and think up ideas and be able to help people on their journey in a way that I wasn't helped. And every DM, whether it was just like a heart emoji or a thank you, or every comment kind of was what fueled my motivation. How can we do this on a bigger scale? How can I reach more people? And just through a content strategy that served my audience and always thinking them over me. Not what do I want to post today, because, it's all about Sophie, but actually what do my community need, and how can I give that to them? I think really grew Pretty Little Marketer to what it is today. And 6 to 8 months went by, and PLM was just a little side baby, something I did for fun. And then January 2021, so a year ago, I found myself unexpectedly unemployed. I think by then we were in our third lockdown. I am an adult and I have bills to pay, and not having a job was very much a problem. So I spent a few weeks kind of scrambling. Oh my goodness, what can I do? I'm a third-year student. I have assignments to write. I can't get a full-time job. I can't move out of my tiny city. And lo and behold, the universe sent me a DM in the shape of a community member asking for social media management. And they literally reached out and they said, "Hey, Sophie, do you freelance?" And in that moment, I had a decision to make. Do I tell the truth and say, no, I don't, sorry? Or do I just say yes and see what happens and where it can go, I built my own community, so perhaps I could help someone else with it. I said yes. They asked for a contract, scrambled to find a contract. They asked for a proposal, Google. Canva, Google, YouTube. Oh my goodness, I was up all hours. But to them, they were just receiving my emails like, hello, yes, I can do this for you. And the background was definitely not so sleek and smooth. But so January 2020, I signed my first client. And since then, I've worked with some of the UK's biggest brands. I now freelance full-time. I offer one-to-ones and webinars and teaching through PLM, so growing it into its own baby business. And it all started with one post and then one yes. And it's just crazy how when you say yes to yourself, these decisions have a domino effect. Who thought that when I set up an Instagram page, it would then become my job and I could pay my bills and do exciting things and meet you and all the great things that I get to do. So yeah.
I know. I love that you said that, because I love social media so much. And I think social media gets a really bad rap because people are like, it's bad for your mental health. And yes, it can be, but so can people, and so
absolutely.
can the real world and all those things. And I think the incredible thing about social media is you can make those connections, and it's infinitely scalable.
Absolutely.
There's no ceiling to how many people you can reach online. And it's amazing. Like, your journey is so inspiring.
Thank you.
To go back to January 2021, you've just become a freelancer.
Yes.
You said yes to stuff that you have no idea how to do. Like, I love that so much, because I'm exactly the same. I'm just like, we'll just say yes to this thing, and then we'll just figure it out after. Like, we have clients, like, when we first started being like, do you guys do Instagram? We're like, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
How do we do Instagram, D? Like, someone give us some training on how we can do that. But it's been great, because then we've managed to build amazing accounts for clients and stuff. And, we're using our accounts as, I'm sure you have as well. And it's kind of how you've got into freelancing, is using your own self as kind of like a guinea pig to see what works.
Absolutely.
I had Dominic McGregor on the podcast last week, and he said the difference was him and Social Chain versus other agencies was they were practitioners. What do you think about
love that? No, awesome. Absolutely. PLM is exactly that. Everything that I do, I've learned through doing myself. And it's funny, I did a podcast a few weeks ago with a lovely lady called Ellie, and she's an entrepreneur. She started her own business, and we were talking about how every job we've had working for someone else, we've hated, and we felt like we've been put in these boxes. Yeah, and only now it makes sense that that's not what I'm meant to be doing. I'm obviously meant to be doing this. And when I was in 9 to 5, so to say, I hated being told this is how we do things, this is how it has to be done. Similar to that approach with university. And so when it comes to PLM and being able to have this freedom to try new things, you know, I want to learn about TikTok. I'm not going to read a book to do that. I'm going to use my own social channels and physically get in front of my phone very awkwardly and uncomfortably and just try new things. And those actionable and tangible things give insights that I can then provide to my clients. And I've always been a learner through doing. And I think that's why school and university just wasn't suited for me and how I learn. So yeah, why not learn as you go, because then I've got physical proof for my clients and for the people I work with that it's worked for me, so let's try it and see how it can work for you too. So learning as you go, yeah, why not do? Hey,
on the topic of learning, what advice would you give to someone who's listening to this and goes, oh wow, like that's so inspiring, like I'd love to be able to get there, and she's done it so fast and whatever. What advice would you give to someone who wants to build a community of some kind? I know each channel is slightly different, and I always like looking at it as social media is just different languages. You say the same thing across every channel. So the Amelia that you're going to meet on TikTok is the same as the one you meet on LinkedIn. It's the same that you meet on Instagram, whatever. But I'm just saying hello in like French, German, Japanese, whatever. It's just a slightly different context. So what advice would you give to someone who is listening to this going, wow, like that's amazing. I want to do that.
Number one, very unpractically, but would just be to say yes to yourself.
Yeah.
When I look back at my life, I remember being like 15 and YouTube was blowing up and thinking, oh my goodness, I wish I could do that, but no one like me could ever do that. And then 18, thinking about heading to university, I'm too creative for that. And giving myself no's before anyone else could do that for me. So first tip, very unpractically, but say yes to yourself. Oh, I want to post on Instagram. Go on then. Why not? What have you got to lose? You know, maybe a friend at school might think you're weird. So what? In 10 years, they'll regret saying that when you're smashing it anyway. So first tip, again, very unpractically, but say yes to yourself. And number two would be always identifying needs. So I think one of the reasons that PLM has grown so quickly to the scale that it is now is because since day one, even unintentionally, before I understood what strategy even was and set up what I was doing, was I used my content and what I was doing to fill needs. So I set up PLM because I was a struggling student. Okay, well, what do struggling students need? Struggling students need advice on CV tips. Okay, well, there's a post. Put it out into the world, and as you begin ticking people's boxes, what you're giving them is something tangible that they can take away. So you almost become a solution to people's problems, and the more you do that, the more people are going to come back and the more they're going to bite into what you do. But more than that, they're going to bring people with them, because if you can help them, why can't you help their friend or their colleague or their classmate? And that's the difference to me between growing a following and a community, is what are you actually giving people? What's the point in what you're doing if you're not helping people and giving them things to take away? So yeah, number one, very unpractically, say yes to yourself. And number two, what need are you identifying and how are you filling that? Because when you fill a need, I think that's when you build a community, rather than just kind of like a meaningless group of people who follow you because they like what you're up to.
And what is your definition of the difference between a follower and a community member?
I think it's that involvement and that buy-in. I want people to see PLM as, oh, this is a part of me, not Sophie, but them, rather than, oh, PLM, that's Sophie. I want people to see that and feel like it's a safe place to comment if they have a thought that might be a bit controversial or against the grain, or I want people to see PLM story and share their own. I think that involvement level from people, from viewers, takes them from being someone who follows PLM because, oh, that's just Sophie, to, oh, PLM, that's me because I'm a part of that and I have a voice here. So yeah, I think that level of involvement you allow people and how much you invite people to get involved. I always wrap up every post with, what do you think about this? Or what are 3 things you would say, XYZ? And even Instagram stories, I'll always pop on a poll or a question sticker because I don't want it to be like, hello everybody, this is my day, I'm sat at my desk, but hey everyone, this is my day. Well, what are you up to as well? Let's get involved and let's do this together. So yeah, I think that level of involvement that you give would be that difference. It's
so interesting that you said that you always put like a question at the end of every post, because we do the same thing, because my whole thought process behind that is, if you were having a discussion, like we're having a discussion like this, and I'm asking you questions and you're answering them, if I'm not asking you the questions, like you would have no reason to say anything. And so even if you're teaching someone something and it's really useful to them, most people won't be like, thank you so much, this is really useful. But if you ask them, was this useful? They're going to be like, yes, this was amazing, thank you so much. Or what would you add? Well, I would add this because this has been my experience and this is my perspective. So it is so important. I think it's something that people really miss, and it's such a small tactic. But, you know, people can say, oh, you're kind of just asking for engagement. Yeah, because you need to, otherwise people won't engage. And it's that engagement that will grow your community. And it's the community thing that is so important. Anyone can buy followers.
Yes.
Anyone. It's really difficult to grow a community.
Absolutely.
As you know. You said something a minute ago, which I thought was quite interesting. You said when you were 15, you kind of looked at YouTube and it was blowing up and thought, oh, I wish I could do that. Do you think that is because you're a woman? You feel that way?
Partially, yes. And partially, no. I think there's a lot of pressures on young women, isn't there, to do things, grow up, get married, be a mum, or grow up, get married, do X, Y, Z. And it's almost, I think growing up as a young woman, I felt often I didn't have decisions to make because the world made them for me. And then the other part of that would just be kind of growing up with insecurities. I actually went to an all-girls school for the majority part of my time in education. And for me, I'm not sure if it was maybe because I was always surrounded by girls or just culture and society in general, but like this huge comparison trap. So especially when it came to, oh my God, I'd love to start a YouTube channel. I loved Zoe Sugg, obsessed with her. Oh, but she's prettier than me, so I couldn't do that. Or, oh, well, even her bedroom's nicer than mine, so if I got a camera, you know, that wouldn't look as good. And even down to these tiny, tiny things. And I think, this comparison as a young woman, 15 and now 10 years on at 25, honestly is something I really struggle with, especially spending a lot of time online. I think that can really heighten that. So yeah, yes and no.
How have you overcome that then? From the because I mean, sitting here now, like you're obviously very confident when you're talking about the things that you're doing and building community and social media and that kind of stuff. And to your point, you spend a lot of time online. So where's the separation?
I really struggle with balance at the moment, like being completely honest. For as long as I can remember, the internet has been my whole life. I remember I was 11 and I was almost heading to secondary school, and my mum was like, when you get to year 7, you can have Facebook and MSN. And it felt like the most pivotal moment in my upbringing. And I think since the very second she let me on our family computer, I've never spent more than a day away from it. And yeah, balance for me right now is something I'm really learning. I've almost become obsessed with my phone. As soon as I post something, like, oh, who's enjoying it? Who's commented? And when that doesn't happen instantly, almost feels like a bit of a blow to me. I guess partially it's a bit of an ego thing, isn't it? You know, who's liking my post? Who's commenting on my post? Are my community enjoying my post today? But actually, as much as that is my job, it's not my whole life, and that's okay. And yeah, so for me at the moment, my real focus over this year, 2022, one of my goals is to find that better balance. Literally turning my phone off at 5 p.m, only going on it between certain hours, minor things like, you know, removing business WhatsApp groups from my phone and only logging in on my laptop. And yeah, it is difficult, isn't it, when it is your job, you want to keep up with things. I want to be the first person to share that brand tweet. I want to be the first person to tell my community about the new Instagram update, but if you're not, that's okay, because you can come back to it later, because real life also matters.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to make. Like, you need to be happy with your life offline before you can be happy with your life online. I think we do, definitely women anyway, I think have, like you were saying earlier, this kind of comparison paralysis where I can't do that because I'm not her, because she's prettier than me, she's skinnier than me, she's more successful than me, she's more intelligent than me, all this, she has a nicer bedroom than me. All those things stop us from kind of, I guess, being in many ways happy offline. And the biggest thing for me was like context. I came off Instagram specifically last January, and I wasn't on it for about 3 months because it was just affecting my mental health. Like seeing all these beautiful women and airbrushed pictures, and I was like, I've literally just had a baby. Like I feel terrible. I have no confidence. All the things. And seeing that was almost like validation to my internal monologue, which was like, you're not enough, you're this, you're that, whatever. And it was validating those negative thoughts. So I was like, the best thing I can do for myself, even though I'm running a business that is social media, is to remove myself from that situation. The best thing I ever did for myself was doing that. Amazing. Because it gave me some breathing room to be like, hang on a minute, social media is not validation for my personality. It's just a distribution channel for it. That I now... This sounds really controversial. I don't give a fuck whether people like me or don't like me. I'm completely indifferent. And I think once you get to that spot of not chasing the dopamine hit of do people like this post? Like, and for you it's a little bit different because you're giving information to your audience as opposed to sharing like a picture of yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like when you share a picture of yourself and people are like, oh, you look so beautiful like this, it's kind of like that dopamine confirmation of like you're enough. But it's the same thing with your work. When you put something up and people are like not engaging with it, or worse, they're like, oh, this is shit or whatever, that makes you feel like you've not done a good job.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though you have. So I know you said you're still kind of struggling with that, but what's that journey been like for you? Because it sounds like it started off a lot worse than it is now.
Oh, absolutely. I am posting online has obviously had its struggles, as everyone knows, but it's been one of the best
struggles
things.
Been for you?
Definitely comparison, 100%. Bigger accounts in the marketing space, and I could never measure up to that. Or LinkedIn specifically, when I see people younger than me doing bigger things or whatnot. So I think comparison's definitely been a really big one. Number 2 has been burnout for sure. For as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to do more. 8 hours of school isn't enough. I'm going to do more when I get home. Or, 8 hours at work isn't enough. I'm going to work until 10 because then that will impress my boss. And always feeling like I have to do more, but that leading me to feel like as soon as I take another step, the floor is falling out from underneath me, almost like trying to catch my own tail. So number 2, burnout. I've struggled with that multiple times since starting a business.
Do you think that's because you're a high achiever or you're like ambitious?
I think so. Yeah. Absolutely. I am. Yeah, it's funny because I'm an only child, so it's not like we can like psychoanalyze my upbringing and, oh, well, her siblings did these things, so she did. Like my whole life, my parents have supported me through everything. And you know what? My parents are amazing. I could move a table an inch and they'd be like, Sophie, that's amazing. You are so awesome. So where that kind of high achievement has come from, I'm not too sure. I think the influence of social media has been a big impact on that. When I was 15, following other 15-year-olds who were millionaires from posting in their bedroom, or now 25, seeing like 18, 21-year-olds blowing up on TikTok and feeling like, oh, well, why haven't I done that yet? And kind of chasing after those ideas. So yeah, definitely a high achiever. Often tell myself that what I'm doing isn't enough and downplaying what I have actually achieved. So yeah, definitely a journey that I'm on right now. What you're doing is enough and what you're doing is amazing. And what we achieve tomorrow will also be great. And we don't have to chase after all of these big things and expect them to come to fruition instantly. That's my worst trait. I think I'm impatient. I want things and I want them now.
It's probably also why you've been so successful so fast, because I'm the same. So it's so interesting. What one of my previous bosses said to me when I first started working for her, she said, like, you're going to do really well in this job because you're super ambitious, you're super driven. She said, but I'm really worried about you. And I said, why? And she was like, because you're a high achiever, which means you're going to get burnt out quick and you're also going to get bored quick. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. And so now, like, when I spot that in my team, I'm like, slow. Like Megan, one of our copywriters, is just like super on it all the time. Like she'll be on Slack at like 7, 8, 9, 10 p.m. at night, and I'll be messaging her being like, get off Slack, go home and sleep. Like, remove yourself, because you can't keep working like that. It's impossible. Eventually, like you said, the floor falls out beneath you, and you can't take another step. It's interesting what you said about, like, you know, you're 15 looking at other 15-year-olds and they're like millionaires and you're feeling like, oh my God, like I'm not doing enough or whatever. I think the average salary in the UK is like £30,000 or whatever. And if you're in the top 1%, it's like £500,000. And yet nowadays, if we look at someone earning £500,000, we're like,
Yeah.
Like, unless you're earning like a couple of million, you're not even interesting. And it's like social media has kind of created this weird bubble where even though like you could have a 6-figure freelancing business, it's not enough. Like you're not a millionaire, you're insignificant, which is absolute bullshit.
Yes.
Like if you look at how successful and how wealthy, we're talking about the context of money, but obviously success means different things to different people. Absolutely. But if you look at the context of money, if you've built a 6-figure freelancing business or a 6-figure business in 18 months or whatever, that you're better than 99% of every business in the world, and 99% of every other person your age or every other human being in the world. And yet, if you haven't done £1 million, if you haven't got VC funding, like, you know, you're insignificant.
Enough.
Yeah. Where do you think that comes from, social media, or do you think that just comes from where the world is right now?
I think both. I think social media has definitely accelerated those kind of attitudes towards success, and because the mobility of it is just crazy, isn't it? You can post online and before you know it, you've got 100 million followers, or it goes viral and it's in front of hundreds and thousands of people. And the more we see that, the more it affirms, okay, well, that's what success is. That person blew up on TikTok and now they're on a red carpet. That is success. And until I do that, I am not successful. I think I've been really lucky in my journey so far as a marketer, now growing my own business, in that all of my kind of mentors and the influences in my life who are further ahead than I have kind of drilled into me exactly what you said, that success looks different to everybody. So to someone, you know, success might look like ending 2022 with £1 million in the bank. For some people, it might just look like ticking 3 things off their bucket list, or for some, it might look like making a move or converting their spare room into something they've always wanted to. So I think defining those personal goals for myself and chasing after those is a really key aspect of how I'm planning on making 2022 a better one mentally, with a better balance. But yeah, I think absolutely social media has accelerated what we feel we need to achieve to have made it. You know, I've made it when I've done this because they have. What about what makes you happy or what you enjoy? I don't want to be 90 and look back on my life and be like, I'm so glad I got to walk the red carpet at the Brits because someone else did. I don't want to do that. I want to look back and think, oh my goodness, I was happy and I spent time with my loved ones, and everything I did it because I loved it, and I finished every day feeling fulfilled. So yeah, I think that definition of success has become a bit of a blurry line for a lot of people, hasn't it? Which is really difficult.
I really believe that you are so, like, there's some crazy statistic, like there's like a 1 in 4.8 million chance of you being alive right now.
Wow, yeah.
And if you're lucky enough to be alive right now, you have a moral obligation to make every single day feel like it's amazing. And yeah, some days are going to suck because that's life. But if you're not proactively looking after you, which in my opinion is the most important person in your life, like how can you expect to look after anyone else?
100%.
I read somewhere that you said that one of the kind of founding principles of you launching PLM was you wanted young females to walk into an interview room with their head held high and feel inspired and confident. Yeah. Why was that so important to you?
I think
particularly women.
I never have. I've had various encounters at work with bosses or in interviews of the opposite gender to myself, and I've just felt awkward or uncomfortable or belittled. And even going back to that time when I was 18 and telling my tutor, I want to study this at university, and him saying like, oh, well, where's that going to get you? And, well, would you ask me that if I was a man sat here telling you that? Or do you just think because I'm a female I want some flimsy little creative career because I can't amount to much more? And so many instances in my life where I felt small as a woman or a young girl. And so when I started PLM, I think one of my really big values and a driver in that was I didn't want other people to feel like that. You know, I didn't go to university and chase my dreams at 18 because I was told I couldn't. And I'd walked into interview rooms before and felt underconfident or intimidated, and that hindered the success of me getting that role. And it took until I was 21. I spent 3 years wishing I could do more and feeling like I couldn't. And it took me 3 years, which is a long time. 3 years is a long time. It took me 3 years to be like, oh no, wait, I can do that. That's okay. And that only happened because it was a lovely lady that I worked with who sat me down on our lunch break. She saw me eat my lunch in my car alone every day. And she told me, you know, Sophie, you can do more. As a woman, as a young woman, as a creative person, you can do what you want. And that second, dramatically, it sounds dramatic, but it really changed my life. I wouldn't be here if she hadn't encouraged me. So if I can do that for anyone and make them feel big, then I want to, and I will, audaciously, forever.
I love that you have that moment that you can look back at and say, like, that person changed my life.
Amazing. If I feel like if my life was a movie, which maybe it will be one day, if anyone wants to make my life a movie, get in touch. That would be like the moment, and there'd be like fireworks in the background, and it was just a pivotal moment for me. For someone further along in their own journey who perhaps looked at what they were doing right now and felt the same, to be like, no, like, you hate what's happening right now, but you're not stuck. It can change. Because at that time in my life, I think a lot of the people around me were feeling the same. You know, oh, I'm in a dead-end job too. It's okay, we'll just get through it together. But I needed someone to be like, let's pull you out of this and let's put you where you want to be, because you can do it. So yeah, no, absolutely. Very dramatically sat on a crusty red couch in a office in the middle of Gloucester. That moment, changed everything, really.
I love that. I have that same moment, but it's the opposite. Someone said to me, who's a very well-respected, very well-known, I think anyone in this room would probably know who he is, industry leader, said to me that my idea for Klowt was going to crash and burn, and it was the worst idea he'd ever heard. And why do you think people are going to buy from people? That's not how things are done. Why don't you go and do marketing or something? And it was like that conversation I was just like, no, fuck you.
Yeah,
like it was almost like the chip on the shoulder I needed to be like, actually, I'm going to take all the advice you just gave me and do the exact opposite.
100%.
And I'm so glad I did.
Amazing.
I'm so glad I did.
I love that.
I love looking back at those moments that you can pinpoint, like, it was that made me then do this. And I don't know, like, it sounds really fluffy, but I do believe that everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you kind of make your own choices and stuff, but everything happens for a reason. To on my point of a man kind of telling me that what I was doing was wrong, how did you feel when that UCAS career coach at school said, you know, you can't do photography, you're you know, go and do a real job? How did that make you feel?
I felt awful. First of all, the room was full of other students. So when I went to school, I think the first 30 minutes were like tutor time. Can't quite remember what it was called. And one by one, throughout the space of a week, we'd go and see our teacher, and he'd be like, hello, Sophie, what do you want to study? I want to study this, blah, 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 blah. And I remember he looked at me and he was like, well, why do you want to do that? Where's that going to get you? And it was that question where I was like, oh, well, I don't know, because I haven't mapped out my next step over the last 10 years and the future 10 years. I just know that I really love photography and I'd like to explore that as an avenue. Well, where's that going to get you? What are you going to achieve? And the girls sat next to me then began to turn their head and overhear, and before you knew it, the whole classroom was quiet. And, you know, as you do, I'm nosy. I love listening to people's conversations. And before I knew it, the whole class was watching me kind of stumble as I was being asked, where's that going to get you? Well, I don't know where that's going to get me, but I just want to try it. Oh, well, that's not good enough. And it really affected me. Like, even now, oh my goodness, I feel it in my chest. I feel when I think back at that moment, and almost a slight disappointment that I let that impact me for so long. You know, I didn't chase my dreams and go to university, which obviously has worked out well. But at that time, it felt like everything came crashing down. Okay, well, I'll just get a job. Got a job, hated it. Oh, well, I haven't amounted to anything, and that's just how it's going to be now. And I think those words, you know, when you question someone and what they love, it has a knock-on effect. And I think for me, that's why, especially on LinkedIn, I encourage kindness. And I always try and use my content to inspire people to just think a bit differently and think about who you're talking to and be kind in that. But yeah, no, like, absolutely detrimental to how I felt about myself. And for at least the 3 years following that conversation, really, it really hurt. Yeah.
I think there's a very big difference between sharing an opinion and debating that opinion. Yeah. Versus telling someone that they're wrong.
Yes.
I think that's something that we've really lost in this country, but also in society, is we can't now go, okay, you disagree with me, or like, you want to go in photography and I don't think that's a great idea. I can't go, well, that's really interesting. Why do you want to do photography? I just go, no, that's a bad idea. And like, there is nothing that you can say that's going to convince me. Like, we've lost perspective on everyone else. And I think to your point about kindness, like, people probably hear that and go, oh, roll their eyes, like kindness and stuff. But actually, that's what underpins everything. Underpins everything. And our uniqueness and our difference and our perspective underpins everything. And so if we can't celebrate that every single person wants to do something different to us, then, I mean, how boring would life be if we all wanted to do the same thing? If we all wanted to be doctors, if we all wanted to be lawyers, if we all, like, there'd be no one to take pictures at weddings. There'd be no one to produce Vogue. There'd be no one running Instagram. There would be no such thing as Twitter. And I think that I really struggled at school because of that reason. I used to get, I hated school. I hated university for the same reason. Whenever I asked why, I was told to stop talking, or that, just shush and listen. Like, this isn't your time to talk.
Just how things are. Just how it's meant to be.
So did you have a similar experience?
At university, not as such. They were definitely more open with like career options. But then I was studying marketing and wanted to go into marketing, so naturally, I guess it just made sense. But yeah, definitely in younger years, I hope things have changed since then. I would love to see sixth form students, chasing after more creative careers and not. No, actually, yes. Every time I meet someone new and tell them I work in social media, I get that exact feeling. Oh, why do you do that? Oh, so you're on Instagram. Oh, well, what does that mean? And feeling like you're smaller than someone else because of what you do. And it's exactly that, isn't it? The world is so much bigger than me and what I've experienced and what my thoughts and opinions are. And I think social media specifically, we've almost lost that ability to recognize that person thinks differently to me and that's okay. Or that person's bought a pink bag, but I would have bought a black one and that's okay. Like, no, actually, I'm going to tell them how I think and tell them that they are wrong because I think they are. I think that kind of balance between recognizing the world's bigger than who we are has definitely, sadly, been lost. But yeah, I think that's why creators like us and more, and so many that I could list, do such a great job in championing people being who they are and encouraging people to think bigger than that. I think that's why spaces like LinkedIn and people sharing those thoughts online make social media all the good things that it is. Because you can change something out there and make it good.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to make, that the world is bigger than you, but also like don't let that stop you from having an opinion. Like, I think we're all so, like, to your point about, people will go on Instagram and be like, that pink bag is horrible. Would you say that to their face if you saw them? Probably not. I think Instagram and social media period has removed us from reality. So we feel like we're really confident in saying, some of the stuff that people write on my LinkedIn post is like unbelievable. As I said earlier, I'm fortunate enough to be in a position now where it's indifferent. It has no kind of knock-on effect to my confidence, because I don't mind whether you like it or not. Like, it is what it is. But I do think that because it's online and it's not in person, people think it's in some way okay. And it's not okay. And so it's so important for me as someone who is confident enough to go out and say that, to be like, actually, no, that's bullshit. Like think about what you say, all those things. And it's so interesting, like, you see, like, when, God rest her soul, Caroline Flack and all that kind of stuff happen, people are like, be kind. And they'll be the same people that are also trolling others' accounts and saying awful things online and all that kind of stuff. To kind of bring it back full circle to sort of helping young women sort of find their confidence and all that kind of stuff, do you think there is enough support for young women in moving into careers, entrepreneurship, businesses, etc.? Because to your point about not feeling like you could, I felt the same way. So my first business when I was 21 failed. There's no secret. I talk about it all the time. It's one of the best things I ever did was failing at that business, because it taught me so much. But as a result of that business failing, every single person that didn't know me intimately was like, well, I mean, glad you took that off your list. Now you can go and get like a proper job. Or like, there was no like encouragement of like, okay, guys, this didn't work, but, take it as a lesson. It was just like, oh, you failed. So that had a huge knock-on effect on me. And if you look at like my male counterparts, very few people that I've met who've been in similar situations where they've had a failed business first have been told, that was a failure.
Yeah.
They're just like, you know what? Well done, mate. You gave it a good go.
Yeah.
Crack on and do the next thing. And I didn't have the same experience at all. So what are your thoughts on that? What's your experience been, and what experience would you like younger girls, women listening to this have going into careers or learning or giving them encouragement?
I think there are resources out there because people are beginning to recognise a problem, which is awesome. But I think it's been at the cost of so many stolen dreams and so many young women like, oh, okay, well, I'm just not meant to do what he's doing, or I'm not capable because I'm a young woman. So although I think there are lots out there, you know, my own community, and so many others similar and really powerful women online who are championing these great things, I think there are things out there, but at what cost? Because all of these businesses and all of these driven women behind them have years of being told, oh, you can't do that, or oh, well, you failed, why don't you go do this, or oh, why aren't you doing this? So I think it is sad that at the expense of people's feelings, but I'm glad that there are things now popping up and popping around that young women can get involved with and learn from. I see so many like Instagram pages, you know, girls who graduate, and then you've got like girls who travel, girls in marketing, women in tech, all of these communities and spaces online that young women can learn from. And I think it's needed, because when I was at school, and not so much at university, purely because I didn't attend much and I was working, and any chance I could sleep in rather than go to a lecture, I would take it. But yeah, definitely at school and in previous workplaces, I felt like a lesser part of the team, or I've been in teams before where I've made a mistake that a male employee has done the exact same, and suddenly I'm in trouble. Suddenly I need to sit down like, oh, Sophie, are you okay? Rather than like, oh, no worries, we'll move on, don't do it again, and making this big thing out of it. And I think what's really sad for me is at the time I didn't realise. I just thought, oh, it's my fault. Oh, I'm just not good enough. Oh, photography is just a rubbish choice, so I'm not going to pursue it. And yeah, I think we need people to be like, well, no, actually, it's not you. It's this big wide world we live in, and it's societal pressures on young women and the views that social media have imposed on us. But yeah, I'm glad that there are things out there. As we've said, the internet can be an awful place, but it can be one of the best places. There are so many spaces now for women to get support and learn that they can be free to be who they are and do what they want to do. But it is sad that it's come at the expense of so many dreams.
I love that you say at the expense of so many dreams, because it is so true.
Yeah,
It's interesting. My one of my friends, Andrew McCaskill, he said to me he never realised the kind of gender divide, if you like, in how people are treated, particularly online, until I blew up on LinkedIn.
Wow, yeah.
And he would look at the comments that I received versus the comments that he would receive on almost an identical opinion.
Yeah,
and it was completely different.
Yeah.
Like, I would be personally attacked and he would be championed.
Yeah.
Or people were like, oh, I don't really agree with you, mate, and like, here's why. Whereas the same person would comment that on his, won't be but like, you stupid women, like, you're so arrogant, you're so da-da-da-da. And it's similar things about talking about money. Like, I see my male counterparts being like, we just sold our business for 500 million quid. And everyone's like, wow, that's amazing and stuff. We talk about the fact we just did a record month, and everyone's like why are you talking about money? You're so arrogant. Like, how, like, who do you think you are to be talking about that kind of stuff? And it is, I didn't even realize it was a thing until Andy had pointed it out to me. He was like, look, it's not just one isolated incident. It's every single time you say something that other people don't agree with. It's like this knee-jerk reaction to be like, you're wrong. Whereas with him, it was like, you're wrong, mate, but like, let me tell you why. So it is really interesting. Which leads me nicely onto your personal brand, because obviously Pretty Little Marketer, PLM, if you're not following, you have to follow. Like, into our office, like Dee, who's here today, like, we are total fangirls of PLM, and like, we're obsessed with your stuff, and we're always on the Instagram page and the LinkedIn page. That's very different to Sophie Miller Personal.
Yeah.
So did you intentionally make that distinction, or was it just very natural for you to then create your own personal brand off the back of PLM?
I, up until maybe about 6 months ago, had no idea what I was doing. I was just posting what I loved online, and yeah, from that, we've grown 2 communities, and I find it really hard talking about Sophie Miller, well, me, because PLM is PLM, Sophie is Sophie, but then we're also in some ways the same thing. But yeah, so I started PLM on Instagram, as mentioned. I then grew a Facebook group, and then the natural next step when I was thinking, okay, how can I reach more marketers, was LinkedIn. So I started posting on the business Pretty to Marketer page. And what I would do is I would just reshare that to Sophie Miller so that, you know, I could share with my network what I'm up to. You know, I'm growing this page, please check it out. And almost using Sophie Miller as a way to send people over to Pretty to Marketer. And then one day I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can share something that's not just me resharing my business page. And I think I'd just joined a Facebook group, and I thought it was really good. And all I did was made a little LinkedIn post. You know, I just joined this Facebook group. I'm feeling the love already. I recommend everyone checks it out. And it got a bunch of likes and comments, and I woke up with a few new connections, and I was like, oh, LinkedIn's kind of cool. And, you know, I'm trying to grow my own community. Why not use who Sophie is to do that? Because Sophie is also PLM, so they kind of go hand in hand. And since then, you know, my little post about Facebook groups, I've been posting on LinkedIn every week for about a year. Some weeks every day, some weeks once a week, some weeks not at all, so very inconsistently. And I think Sophie Miller on LinkedIn, well, myself, I think I've got a community now of just under 40,000, which insane, really not intentional, but yes, it's a great space. I like it more than I thought I would.
Everyone says that about LinkedIn. I think I love LinkedIn so much because it's like a discussion forum.
Yes.
It's not really it's much more interactive, I think, than other platforms. Like on other platforms, you post a picture, you post a video, you post a thing, and then people engage with it. Whereas on LinkedIn, it's like, here are my opinions, what are yours? And then you can have like a proper thread of discussions in the comment section. What advice would you give to people who are in a similar situation to you, where they have a business and they hear someone like me, like preaching about personal branding and all that kind of stuff? What advice would you give them about going about and why it's important, if you think it is, to build your personal brand off the cuff too?
It's so important. I genuinely don't think PLM would be what it is today if my own brand and Sophie as an individual hadn't also been given some love and grown and become kind of, I suppose, a humbly recognised figure in that online community. So I think absolutely so important. It can accelerate what you're up to and reach. I attended your webinar a few weeks ago with Fabric Academy, where you talked about how a single person has 10 times the reach of a brand. And I remember listening and looking back at my own journey and thinking like, oh, yeah, no, that's actually really true, because I have physically lived that and it's got me to where I am now. So yeah, to answer the first part, incredibly important. Hard work, but incredibly important. A really practical tip that I wish I could have told myself when I first started my LinkedIn journey was defining, who is Sophie? What does Sophie want to be known for? I think I accidentally answered that question along my way. And about last August time, I had like a whole strategy rejig. PLM hit 20K on Instagram. I think Sophie Miller did on LinkedIn at the same time. And suddenly there was all of these people looking at what I was up to. But I didn't have a clue what I was up to. So I kind of sat down. I was like, okay, what do I want PLM to be known for? What do I want Sophie to be known for? And it kind of made LinkedIn a much easier task, rather than looking at it and thinking, oh my goodness, what on earth do I have to say today? You know, PLM hasn't hit a new milestone, or I haven't had a cute DM that I can screenshot in a while. Who am I? What do I want to say? Well, actually, I want Sophie to be known as a community expert who puts people in the conversation. That's who I want me as an individual to be known for. So then my approach to my LinkedIn content became, oh God, my business isn't doing anything this week. What can I post about? But actually, okay, well, through my business, I want to be known as a community expert. What do people want to know about community? What can I say about that? How can I share my thoughts? So I think sitting down and defining, okay, well, what's my business? What's that known for? And as a sub part of that, what do I want to be known for? helps refine your kind of mission and your aims, and for me just makes content really, really easy. So yeah, those 2 bits.
I love that you said that, because that's like the first thing, or the second thing that we do with clients is always, number one, what are your goals?
Yeah.
Because everyone has different goals with their businesses as individuals. Like some clients come to us and they want to build their employer brand, and they're doing it through thought leadership. Some clients need more sales. Some clients need various kind of other things. But the second thing that we do is always like, what do you want to be known for? And that's quite a stumping question for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And normally what they come back with initially is like, I want to be known as an expert. I want to be known as someone who's kind, someone who's approachable. And we're like, no.
Yeah.
What do you want to be known for? What do you want people to say about you when you're not in the room? Like, what do you want someone to look at your content and know instantly that they can come to you about that one thing, or those 2 things, or those 3 things? And when you kind of reframe it like that, and I'd always say it's kind of like, what are you passionate about? What is your authentic reality? And what do you do?
Love that.
And for me, it's, personal branding, entrepreneurship, and being a leader of a business. Like, that's kind of what all my content falls into. Yeah. Once you get that right, it becomes so easy to churn content out about it, because you talk about it all the time, because those are 3 things you're super happy to talk about. But the second thing is, posting content's really scary.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether you're doing it for a brand account or a personal brand account. And so if you're not confident in talking about those things that you want to talk about, you're going to suck.
Yes.
And people are going to smell your fear. They're like sharks in the water. They will smell blood, and you'll get no engagement, or worse, you'll get like not good engagement for it. So I think when you kind of pick what it is that you want to be known for, like you said about being a community expert, etc., it needs to be about stuff that you're really confident in talking about. Because if you're confident in talking about it, it kind of makes it a lot easier to be confident in having your opinion about those things online.
Definitely.
So what has that confidence journey been for you? Because I imagine when you first posted, it was a bit like, ooh, because you've been kind of hiding might be the wrong word, but like hiding behind the brand for so long.
I wish that I could pull up a screenshot of my first ever LinkedIn post, because it's absolutely awful. And
there's no such thing as bad content, in my opinion. As long as it's not offending or like whatever. It's no such thing as bad content.
Maybe unintentional might be the better word. But so I was posting like, okay, well, I want to build my brand, or I feel like I have to be on LinkedIn rather than I want to be, than I want to inspire people. And my confidence through LinkedIn has probably been the main driver in A, being able to sit here and chat with you today, but B, being able to be authentic through my business and in the other areas of my life and the things I do. And I think LinkedIn for me has really helped me understand, firstly, as we've said, who am I, and what do I want to be known for, but really amplified the things that I love, and almost ignited that passion. I've always been passionate about social media, but like I've never talked about it. I've never taught people about it. And as soon as I started doing that on LinkedIn, I was like, oh, like this is actually awesome. And so many other people love it too. And you almost begin to get excited again about maybe the more mundane things. Community management might not be the most exciting thing, but when I put that into a LinkedIn post and teach someone something new, or they share a short story about their community and how that's changed their life, or they've changed someone else's, it becomes exciting again. So for me, I think LinkedIn and sharing my content there has really kind of refueled my passions. And the way that confidence has built has just been posting. And I know that sounds really fluffy and really unhelpful, but making the decision every day to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to try it. Okay, well, that post didn't work so great. Maybe I will add a line break in between each line because other people do that and it works. Oh, cool, that one. People enjoyed that post. Okay, well, maybe next time I'll be brave enough to add a picture, and kind of taking those baby steps and exploring and understanding my voice has been a really helpful way to use LinkedIn. But yeah, as simple as, you know what, I'm just going to post because what's the worst that can happen? Okay, well, Dave from Leeds doesn't enjoy my post today. Cool, I'm just going to move on. Maybe I get a bit upset because his comment wasn't too kind, but I'll reach out to my support system. We'll talk about it. I'll recognise that what he said isn't a reflection of who I am, and I'll get back up and I'll try it again. And I think it's just been really character building, I suppose. This notion of I'm terrified, but I'm going to do it. And I did it, and so I can do it again tomorrow. So it's just making that decision, isn't it? Like, screw it.
I love that so much. It's so funny, you know, like obviously our business is all about, for a lot of clients anyway, it's all about ROI. So like we look back and we look over the year and we're like, right, how many leads or how much business is personal branding driven, or how many job applications or whatever has it driven for the business. And some of our clients, it's like £1 million. For some clients, it's like £250,000 Like we have, you know, different kind of goal conversions for each one. But what stands out in my mind is we have this one client who came to us for all of those reasons. She wanted ROI, she wanted all those things. But I'll never forget when we sat down with her for her end of year review last year, and I said, you know, what's been the best outcome of working with us? You know, what's been the best thing? And she said, you know what? You've really helped me get my mojo back.
Oh,
like
amazing.
Posting my opinions on social media and getting that kind of reconfirmation that what I think is good enough is just has reinvented who I am. It's kind of helped me find my confidence again. You know, she just come off the back of a divorce and, you know, being a business owner, single mom, like all those things. She just felt really knocked, and building her personal brand with our help basically rediscovered who she was. And I just thought, like, that's so true, because going into personal branding for me, like when I first started posting, I was not confident at all, and like it shows. Like if you look back at my first LinkedIn post, it's like, you know, maybe this is my opinion, maybe literally it's not, like like it's very like kind of pussyfooting around everything, whereas now I'm like, stop doing this, start doing that. Like I'm super confident in my opinions, but that's come from posting, and it's come from people being like, no, you're wrong, let's talk about it, or yes, I agree with you, whatever. And it's almost like Amelia offline has become more confident because Amelia online is so now okay and being 100% okay with the consequences of her opinions. Do you think you've had a similar experience?
100%. No, my content when I began was the exact same. Like, do I believe what I'm saying? Maybe social media is cool, but if you think it's not, that's okay too. Don't worry about me. And I think not only has that stemmed into my personal life, like I'm more than happy now to sit here and talk with you about my thoughts and feelings and my experiences. When I meet new people, when I'm faced with, oh, what does a social media manager do? What job is that? I no longer think, oh, okay, well, that's the wrong thing to do. I think, oh, no, I know about this and I enjoy talking about it. So let's hash it out and let me tell you about how it is a real job, and we'll go into it in more detail. But also in my business, I can do an Instagram live now and feel, okay, this is going to be fun. I'm going to do a good job and I'm going to engage with people. Because I think through LinkedIn, I've got to know people better. And I think it really tests your compassion and builds that compassion and builds your kind of overall experience of who people are. It's almost like a practical notion of, okay, well, this is my world. The world is bigger than I am. I think LinkedIn tells you that very often, both in good and bad ways. But, you know, I think the more that you're stretched online, the more that in real life, as you mentioned, you become a more true version of yourself. I feel often like sharing who I am on the internet is scarier than sharing who I am in real life, because no one in the street is going to come up and be like, oh my goodness, that outfit's awful, why are you wearing that? But online, someone could say that. They very well might. So putting yourself out there, it stretches you, it tests you, and kind of proves to yourself, you know, if I can do this, if I can do this, and Dave from Leeds thinks this, and I can get over that quickly and learn from that, I can do anything. So it's crazy how it changes you.
Builds resilience.
Absolutely.
Which is so important. You said something a minute ago that you were saying that no one would walk up to you in the street and say, your outfit is horrible. Which online they might.
Oh,
so how much of your personal Sophie Miller, the person that's sitting here hopefully and the person that's with your friends and family, how much of her do you bring online?
More
Is
now.
There a line?
Definitely, absolutely. I did a webinar a while back. We were talking about mental health and social media. And although I am Sophie and I'm Sophie online, you know, I love having fun, I love encouraging people, and the person you see online is absolutely who I am. I think there is a lot that I hold back, and when I hear you talking about how you do not care about your hate comments, or if someone disagrees with you, you can kind of bat it away because you're so confident in your thoughts and your feelings and your opinions, that is the woman I'm trying to be this year, because I really struggle not to take things personally. I'm a very soft and compassionate person, and so when someone comes in my space and doesn't like that, I tend to get very upset. I specifically remember, so I registered for self-employment a whole year ago. And when I did, I accidentally registered as a fisherman rather than a social media manager. Please don't ask me how I managed to do that.
Fisherman, that's great.
I thought it was hilarious because, it's a funny story. And I shared it on LinkedIn. And someone commented and told me that my post was as funny as a headache. And although now I sit back and I think, oh yeah, funny, like that's a good comment. Like I physically cried. I really took that personally. So no, I'm absolutely on a journey to be more like you, Amelia, and be able to, be more resilient online. And that absolutely is a journey. But yeah. That's what I was saying.
It's fine. I've lost track of myself so many times. I think, it is really important. And it's one of those things that I think we don't teach at school and should teach at school, which is that, other people aren't going to like you.
Yeah.
And actually, you don't like everyone.
Yeah.
So stop trying to be liked by everyone.
100%.
Like we all get kind of told, like, go and make friends and like, oh, have you made any new friends at school today? Yeah. Like when you're a kid, like remember you come home from school in your little primary school uniform and your mum goes, have you made any new friends yet? And you're just like, no. And everyone's kind of like, I feel like it's forced into feeling like they have to have lots of friends. And I did it was really interesting. I did a social media, I did an Instagram story the other day about this. And one thing I wish I knew when I was younger was exactly that. Like, you don't need to have lots of friends. You don't need to have lots of people in your group. And actually, the older that you get, the more confident you get, the more opinionated you get, the more self-assured that you get, the smaller your circle gets, because you're like, you know what? I'm not adding any value to that person. They're not adding any value to me. So let's just drift apart, and I'm totally okay with that. And it kind of full circle back to your point about, crying about someone making a joke about your post. Like, I think as you get older, you do kind of build naturally that resilience of just like, so what? So what if John from Leeds thinks that my post is shit? He's not my audience anyway.
Absolutely.
I think the most incredible thing about your personality is that it repels who you want it to repel and attracts who you want it to attract. And I think that's why personal branding is so powerful. So what is next for PLM and Sophie Miller?
I knew you were going to ask that question.
Have you been listening to the other podcasts?
Every podcast I do, every webinar, everything, everywhere I go, what's next? In the next year, what's PLM up to? And the honest truth is I have no idea. I started PLM a year and a half ago. Only a year ago, I started freelancing, and now I've kind of reached this point where we've got this massive community who I want to serve. And my goal this year is to network with people more experienced than I and learn more about my options, because there's people and they want to learn. And how can I best serve them? So the honest answer is I have absolutely no idea. I know that it's a business that I want to grow, but I want to remain authentic, and I want community to be at the center of that always. But what that is going to look like, no idea. And it's actually really exciting. I think I've lived my whole life always worried about what's next. Hence why PLM was born out of a bit of a quarter-life crisis, because I was worried about what was coming and not being able to control that. But I think I've reached a point now where I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm figuring it out, and whatever's next is going to be so exciting. I have no answer because I have no idea. But I think that's good. We've got a whole big wide world and we can cover all of it. So what we choose to do next is going to be cool. But yeah, I guess stay tuned would be my only answer.
I love that answer so much. We're told our entire lives to have goals, to have things to achieve and things to aim for. And actually, life doesn't work that way.
Oh, absolutely.
You can make all the goals in the world and guarantee you'll hit none of them. We all overestimate so much of what we can accomplish in a day and underestimate what we can accomplish in like 10 years. And so, I think the goal setting thing, it could be good in some instances, but in a lot of instances, like your career, your life, etc., it's just bullshit, because it puts so much pressure on you to have a baby by this age, get married by that age, you have £1 million in your bank. Like I remember when I was 18 being like, I need to be a millionaire by 25.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not successful.
Literally, long story short, when I was 17, I got dumped by a boyfriend. Awful. Who would do that to me? And I remember crying, not because I was dumped, but because I wasn't going to be able to get married when I was 21. Like that felt like the biggest thing. Oh, I have to do this because everyone else is. But shaking off those norms is really hard, isn't it? I went to university at 21, I graduated at 24, and I was constantly fighting this feeling of being late. Oh, I'm late. I'm 25 now. I've only just figured out what I want to do. Oh, you should have done that at 18. Well, I did. Firstly, I was told I was wrong. But secondly, I think it absolutely is a journey, isn't it? And yeah, so shaking off those norms is really hard. But once you're able to do that and look at the future as exciting rather than terrifying, I think it's the most freeing thing that you could ever do.
I love that so much. And it's so true. Like, there is no such thing as the right time. It's just the right time for you. Like, you know, you can go to university at 50, you could divorce someone at 90, you could start a business at 65 and go on to be a billionaire like Colonel Sanders did when he started KFC. You know, the guy that started Netflix was in his 50s when he started that. Like, there is no such thing as like the right time. It's just the right time for you.
100%.
I love that answer so much. So the last question I'm going to ask you, and this is the same question I ask everyone during this podcast, and FYI, we don't send questions out to any of our guests. It's always off the cuff. Is if you could go back to 21-year-old Sophie, which wasn't that long ago for you, it was a lot longer ago for me, and ask her or tell her 3 things that you wish you could have known at that age, what would they be?
Number 1 would be to stop saying no to yourself. So a short while before I started PLM, actually, I was bored in the pandemic and hating life, as we all were. And one of the promises I made for 2020 was to say yes to everything. I think it was actually because I watched Yes Man, the movie with Jim Carrey, and I felt inspired in the moment, and then it's kind of spiraled to where it is today. Why say no to yourself? Let someone else do that for you. And so I'd absolutely love to shake my 21-year-old self and tell her that. Number 2 would be exactly what we were just saying. You're not late. I am heading to university felt like the biggest mountain because people are graduating at that age. Oh, I'm so old. Why am I going to? I wasn't old. Oh my goodness, what was I thinking? So yeah, you're not late. Exactly what you said. There's only your time, and you know, live by that. And the final thing I would tell myself. What would I tell myself? Probably tell myself lots of things. I don't know what I was up to at 21, but I could have been doing so much more. So perhaps I would tell myself that, just remind myself that I'm so much more capable than I think I am. I was in an events coordination job for 3 years. I ate my lunch for 3 years in my car by myself. I used to work at 6 a.m. So if it was a hair wash day, I'd wake up at 4:30 in the morning. And I would physically cry in the shower or on my way to work. Because I felt like I wasn't made for more, or I felt like this is what life is now. I'm stuck. I've been doing this 2 years. There's no point changing now. So I think I would probably slap myself, because why are we thinking like that, Sophie? And just remind myself that you are so much more, and it's never too late to, you know, change your path or make these new decisions, and just go out there and do it. Stop crying in the shower, Sophie, and do something new.
It's never too late to be happy.
Not at all.
I love that so much. Sophie, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. I can't believe I'm here with you. Love what you and the team are up to. So I'm so excited.
And we love what you're up to. Thank you so much.